every viable business starts with an idea. But the thing is, ideas are, should I say, a kobo a minute. You can think of ideas. I can think of 10 ideas for you even right now. The critical thing is the business has to be able to turn a profit. In other words, when you make X amount of revenue from it, it must be such that the expenses are not as high as the revenue. And that is what the difference is, basically a profit. Now, there's a famous saying that no amount of hard work can turn a kitten into a tiger. What you get is a big pussycat. If the expenses are going to always be over the revenue, you don't have a business. You have a liability that you're taking care of. So that is the first start. You have to look and see, can this turn a profit? Now, unfortunately, profit is not the end of it all. The profit must be such as to be able to meet the entrepreneur's needs. Again, if not, basically substituting a job for a business. So he will just be running up and down. At the end of the day, he will be querying why he's doing so much work. So the quantum of profit is important. And then, and this is quite important in Nigeria, cash flow. It's not enough for the business to turn a profit. When will it turn that profit? Because in Nigeria, financing is quite an issue. And if you don't have whether bank loans or equity to be able to cushion you through the times while you're waiting for the bills to be paid, then you're going to have a problem. So cash flow is also important. That's the financing side. The context is also critical. Real House was fortuitously birthed in 1999. And for those who are old enough, they would remember that that was the time that we got the GSM operators come in. Now, it turns out that if you advertise, which was new to us at that time, you would require to put a phone number on the advertisement. And at that time, there were barely 400,000 phone lines in Nigeria. And we hadn't seen that that was the reason why quite a number of real estate magazines had failed, because the advertisers wanted to advertise, but they couldn't put a phone number on the adverts. And we just came in at about the right time. Now, again, I think a dash of luck is always important to the entrepreneur. And like Napoleon said, he would rather have a general that is lucky than a general that can actually fight the war. But you need to look at the context, the timing. If you're going into a business right now that requires a lot of foreign exchange, and with the foreign exchange illiquidity in the market, then you might have to rethink whether you can make a profit or get the cash flow or even get the foreign exchange to trade in. So that is where the context comes in. Now, the final but most important one I put at the end is actually the entrepreneur himself. I had read certain material which showed that the likelihood of an entrepreneur succeeding is based on his experience in that particular industry. Now, that is not 100% correct because I didn't have a background in publishing. But if you realize that there's such a lot of unknowns into the new venture or the new project, it would help if the entrepreneur was conversant with as many aspects of it as possible. So for instance, say you are thinking of a new way of social media. It would help if you had worked in a social media firm before and had the contacts and had the expertise to go around certain things. Otherwise, you'll be stumped. Immediately, you'll come across a problem. So the entrepreneur, most importantly, and the people that he can get to support him in running the business, right? That is so critical. In fact, some may argue that that is more critical than any other factor. For instance, Hewlett-Packard came together. They didn't even have any idea They just set up a company to say, well, we're two guys who are good in engineering, and we're going to set up this firm, and we're going to see where it takes us. So everything we say you take with a pinch of salt. The factors, they all interact together. And so where there are strengths in one side and weaknesses in the other, you have to look to see whether they come together to make a fairly strong whole. So it's critical that we do not take these factors independently of one another, but they should come together, and you see whether you can then proceed with the idea or the vision that you have. Well, the idea of testing your product or service, this new product or service that you've come up with, is one of the tough ones. On the one hand, you have those who articulate that you need market surveys, you need to go out and ask the customers what they want. And then you have Steve Jobs, famously of Apple, who says that the customer doesn't even know what he wants. We would build things that we want, that for needs that we have seen, and then we'll sell it to the customer. I think you would probably have a middle ground between both, and this is where experience of the industry comes in. It's beneficial to the entrepreneur, because he typically would have seen gaps maybe in the big institution he was working for, and seen that the customers would still like maybe an added service, an added product to what is already existing. And he can actually gauge the numbers that will be required. But even having said so, he might be still surprised to find out that when he actually tries to sell it, there are several issues which he might not have thought of. So for me, the final thing would be the entrepreneur just has to launch. He has to look at the costs and try and trim it as much as possible, and be prepared to scale up immediately he sees that there's some traction. Where he sees that the market is rejecting the idea, he mustn't be so sold on the product or service that he cannot accept the fact that the market will want it in a different shape or form. The market, after all, determines whether he has a business. So once he launches, he must be ready to accept feedback, look at it dispassionately, and then immediately begin to see how he will be able to make the business a success. But if anyone could tell you that this is how the product is going to work out, then there won't be any entrepreneurship. It will just be, I guess, miracles happening all the time.